It was an extremely detailed declaration running to some 10 pages and included an action plan for future activity. The essence of the plan can really be boiled down to this: it can no longer be business as usual in the world's financial markets. Perhaps the leaders were angry, they were certainly frustrated, and they might also have been a little bit nervous at the sheer weight of despair that's been round on top of the world's financial markets. However, when it all came to a head at this particular summit, out they came with a clear plan for how to put things right. For instance, on the question of a fiscal stimulus, they said quite clearly, before we do fiscal stimulus, let's talk about the declaration that they came out to on what the causes were all about. The G20 said in their declaration, the major underlying factors to the current situation were, among others, inconsistent and insufficiently coordinated macroeconomic policies, inadequate structural reforms, which led to unsustainable global macroeconomic outcomes. What that means in plain English is there's more than enough blame to go around for government, regulators and authorities in all the major advanced economies. So what to do about it? They pledged themselves to increased fiscal stimulus. This is what they said. We will use fiscal measures, that's basically government spending, to stimulate domestic demand to, and this is the key word, rapid effect as appropriate. Again, in plain English, what it means is while maintaining a policy framework conducive to fiscal sustainability, we are going to open up the war chests and start spending money. Overall, though, for President Bush, who presented the communique to the world, this was clearly a case of it's time to get things moving.
One of the key achievements was to establish certain principles and to take certain actions for adapting our financial systems to the realities of the 21st century. A lot of the regulatory structures that are in place were 20th century regulatory structures. And obviously, the financial industry went way beyond them.
What this means in practical effect is simple. There will be new accounting regulations, stricter supervision of banks and investment houses and all sorts of hedge funds. They will have to give greater transparency. They'll have to have better risk management. There will be incentives that should be encouraged for those who look to stability, not great risk-taking, which ultimately nearly brought down the financial house. And the IMF and World Bank, Relitza, those two Bretton Woods institutions, they will take on big new roles. Overall, what can we say about this summit? There has been a shift in power on the economic scale. On the economic world, it now moves from the developed world to the developing.
Yeah, the G20, basically some are saying that this is an unprecedented meeting of the G20 heads of state, that there hasn't been such a meeting on such a high level, and that really it sets an important precedent as to how the world will be meeting again to review its problems. It will probably continue to be a broader range of countries.
Time and again in this declaration, it talks about the new economic realities. It wants the IMF to rebalance itself in its quota system in a way to allow for the fact that the developing world needs to have a greater say in economic matters. It also basically says that the G7 as an economic force is still relevant, but that developing nations need to have a much greater say. This was borne out afterwards by President Dmitry Medvedev of Russia. He has said in his post-summit speech that the G20 should be the new, if you like, forum for global economic discussions, with the G7 and G8 being reserved to global security issues. So no question, countries like Brazil, India, Indonesia now have a firm seat at the table.